This is the Agorist Nexus podcast. I'm Brandon. I've got my great co-host Dag with me. How you doing, Dag?
Excellent, man. How's it going?
Hey, pretty good, pretty good. So while the statists are arguing over check marks on pieces of paper, we're talking about real production and real value today with Michael, and he does all kinds of cooking and baking and pretty much everything. So how you doing, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Sure, man. Thanks for being here.
How do you make money baking, cooking?
Well, I got a couple ways that I do it here. So the first thing that I started a couple of years ago. Started a personal chef business. So it's in-home meal preparation for people too busy or too lazy to want to cook for themselves, basically. That has taken a bit of a downturn this year, as you might expect.
This was normally something you do like in people's homes?
Yes. Okay. So that's one of the beauties of that particular business. So one of the reasons I'm not a caterer, because I can do anyway, a lot of the same things a caterer would do. But so under technical definitions, a caterer is selling a product subject to all kinds of idiotic rules, regulations, inspections, etc. Whereas a personal chef is selling a service subject to none of those. So it was a very easy decision at that point to do that versus trying to be a caterer. So that's kind of where I went with that. And yeah, like I said, I mean, it wasn't going super great because I was new, and it's a fairly small town that I live in. I mean, it's like 50 some odd thousand people in the town itself. And then there's a couple of smaller communities nearby. But needless to say, it's not a huge population. So and I didn't have a large operating budget for advertising or anything like that. So trying to get word out was very slow going. So I didn't have a very large regular client base yet. But what little regular client base I had, COVID came along and shot that right in the fucking face. So
yeah, it does that.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. Well, I mean,
government.
Especially
you mean government.
Well, that too. Well, I mean, like one of my clients, like legitimately government or not, because I do have to say a little credit where it's due. As much as I don't like to give governments credit at all, the government of North Dakota, where I live, has been trying their very best. Well, maybe not their very best, but they've been doing a pretty good job nonetheless of being fairly hands-off with this and putting out, actually just putting out guidelines for the most part. Like, this is what we recommend you do. Do what you want. Which I don't generally have too much of I don't generally have too much of a problem with that. And so the one bigger client I had, they have regular contact with a mother/mother-in-law, depending on which part of the couple you're talking about. And the mother-in-law is an 80-year-old diabetic, constantly smokes, chronic emphysema, basically every kind of bad comorbidity you could ask for with the kind of infection that was going around. So they were like, yeah, we don't really want to kill her. So we're going to kind of cut off contact with most people voluntarily, like I said. So, I mean, it was like, fair.
Right.
I can't blame you for taking the measures that you think are best to protect you and your family. So, okay. I don't like it, but fair.
This is one of the fortunate things about this. It sounds terrible about this, disease or infection or whatever you want to call it, is that it really is age targeted. So, in a situation like that, it's like, take the measures. So it's,
exactly.
There's one good thing that's easy to, old people don't go, they're not out on the town as much as everybody else anyhow. So,
Yeah, exactly. So, but at any rate, then with that, so this was something I kind of started in parallel with the personal chef business, is just more for my own, well, maybe not more, but about 50% for my own amusement and 50% as a way to potentially make some extra money, I started doing some woodworking stuff, little things, some small decorations and shit like that. Nothing huge, nothing crazy. And my mother is a big time quilter, has been for a long time. She's got a ton of them. Some of them she doesn't necessarily even want, so that kind of thing. So we were like, well, let's start this little thing together where we're selling our crafts together. And so we thought, okay, the local farmers market, it's still going to be running. They allow crafters to come in and sell things. Like that's a good outlet to try and sell some of our things at. It's no big deal. And I figured, especially with not having the personal chef clients that I was having, I was like, okay, how can I get extra money out of some of these things? So I looked into cottage food industry laws and regulations up here in North Dakota, and they are pretty relaxed. So that enters in the next part of how I make money kind of independently as a cook and so forth is I was baking bread like a motherfucker over this past summer and selling it at the farmer's market.
You guys, your farmers market stayed open all summer, or did they close down at all because of the COVID? Oh, that's awesome.
They opened a little bit late, but that was not even exclusively because of COVID. Like a little bit was because of COVID. A little bit was because the weather at the first part of the season was a little weird. So produce was coming in a little bit slow. So there wasn't produce ready to start selling at the farmer's market until early July, I think it was. Whereas normally it would open up probably like middle of June-ish. So
do you guys have a lot of veggies and like different actual farms at your farmers market? And the reason I ask is because I run into so many quote unquote farmers markets that are just craft festivals,
Yeah. I would say, so obviously we had a bunch of crafts there for sale, but I was also selling the bread. And then one of the other things I started selling there was spice blends, because I've been a chef for a very, very long time. So I'd come up with some spice blends for things. And I was jarring those and selling them up. So we obviously had some crafts, but we also had food products there. And I would say, other than us, there was like 3 people at this market, 3 vendors that were, I would call crafts people of sorts, but even they're still very tangentially related to a farmer's market. Like one of them sold like essential herbal oils and infusions and things like that. So that's still kind of farmer's market related to me. There was one that sold handmade soaps. There's one other one who I don't remember what they had, but there was one guy that was selling rugs, handmade rugs. So that was actually pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I mean, there is probably 30 vendors or something like that signed up at this particular farmer's market. And so there was only like maybe 4 people that were crafters. Everybody else was like a farm of some form or another. There were people, vegetables of all kinds. There was at least one mushroom farmer, or they had mushrooms. I don't know if they were necessarily a mushroom farmer, but 1 or 2 people that their primary product was honey. But again, that's still a farmer's market product as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah. No, you got to have at least one good local honey guy at a farmer's market.
And there's a lot of them up here, I gotta say, because this is just a fun piece of trivia. State where I live, North Dakota, is actually the #1 honey producer in the U.S.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think
we
that
have a lot of
how cold
apiaries.
it is and stuff up there. But
yeah, you wouldn't think it, but I mean, the thing of it is soybean, sunflower, and canola are 3 of the big crops up here, and they all need pollinators.
Nice.
So there's a shitload of honeybee keepers up here. And then
they button them up real good for the winter.
Mm-hmm. Yep, but they overwinter up here too. Like that's the other funny thing. Is like most of them overwinter up in North Dakota. And then in like February or March, something like that, a lot of them start trucking their bees down to places like California and so forth. It's another one of those kind of fun pieces of trivia. It's like, without North Dakota beekeepers, there would be no California almonds, because the bees up here are such a huge part of the almond pollination and harvest down in California that without it, the California almond production would probably drop to minuscule amounts in comparison to what it is right now. And don't get me wrong, California produces a shitload of almonds. But it would drop precipitously.
Yeah, growing those monocrops, it's just so unnatural. You actually have to ship in your pollinators,
Yeah, especially when it's that many of them.
Our big one is when we get oranges over the winter, we have a lot of apiaries here that ship all over the country too, for pollination, but they bring them all here for the orange blossoms, for orange blossom honey. And there's just hives, just pallets of them just all over scattered about the orange groves.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, there need to be. There's so damn many of them.
Yeah. Have you ever tried raising bees? You do a little bit of, I don't know if you call it homesteading, but you have a garden and stuff, right?
I have a garden, and fingers crossed here soon, we will actually be moving out of the town I'm currently into a town with a burgeoning population of about 500 people. Ooh, and we'll be on a 3 1/3 acre plot where I will be turning it into a micro farm. But yes, I have not kept any bees yet, because that was one of the reasons why I wanted to mention the micro farm, because that is absolutely in the cards whenever this happens. I want bees, and I want them real bad.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing.
I've heard. Yeah. It's one of those things too that, I'm a lot of the things that I look at from a self-sufficiency standpoint, and how can I kind of close in my production circles some, or tighten them down, or supply chain circles, or however you want to phrase it. Point of the matter being is how can I bring some of this stuff in to where I'm less concerned with what other people decide to do, because that's another lesson this year I feel should have taught a lot of people, is while attempting to be 100% self-sufficient is kind of foolhardy in the long term, being a little more self-sufficient is a very good idea for people. And this year really drove that home to me. So bees are one of those things that they help a garden, if you're going to keep one, produce properly. Well, maybe not necessarily properly, but abundantly. And then there's the added benefit of the honey just in general. And from honey, man, there's so many other things you can do too.
Medicine, mead.
I've got several bottles of that very thing, mead, that I made last year and bottled up, still sitting here in my basement.
It's so simple. It's just like yeast and the honey, right?
Yeast, honey, water. Mead, strictly speaking, is yeast, honey, water.
Okay.
If you add anything else to it, then it starts technically becoming different things, and that depends on what you add to it. Spices become methylgen, I believe is what it's called. And if you add fruits to it, it becomes a melomel, something like that. I don't know how it's pronounced, but point of the matter being is it technically becomes a different drink. Technically. Almost nobody calls them that anymore, because who fucking cares, really? It's a strawberry mead, or it's a cinnamon mead.
It's a flavored mead.
Exactly. It's the only people who really care about those things are pretentious, snooty assholes like me. So.
Well, you really do. I can tell from the stuff you post. Oh yeah, have you ever done mead, Brandon?
No, I just brew beer. I just brew beer. I do 5-gallon all grain brew in a bag, so I don't have a lot of equipment, and I need to do 10-gallon, but I need a wort chiller for that. And or at least a bigger, like a cutout keg that I could brew my wort in. But and then I guess I don't need a wort chiller. I can just put it in like an airtight container and let it cool down on its own, and throw yeast in there the next day or something. But yeah, you just need more equipment when you go 10-gallon. And all grain's great. You know, you need that extract that sticks to the bottom and makes like a different flavor sometimes. And extract's also super expensive too. And I just get better results with all grain. I mean, it's more time consuming when you brew it, but like an hour or 2 hours longer. But you just get better results. That's my rant.
How much beer do you get from 5 gallons? Like, how many bottles of beer is that?
I get about 50.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Yeah, that's not bad.
Yep. Well, and just like so, the mead that I had done was I think it was actually like a 4.5 gallon batch or something like that. But yeah, and that's like standard wine bottles. That's I got like 15 of them, I think, when I made it.
Nice.
Oh wow.
So,
does mead taste really sweet when you drink it?
It depends.
Okay.
The mead that I made was not, because I did that on purpose. So a lot of the time for some of these things, you'll sweeten it some again after the fermentation is stopped, or you'll purposely stop the fermentation a little bit early to keep some of that sweetness there. But I don't like the really, really sweet meads. I'm not a fan. So mine's actually pretty dry, to be honest. And like there's definitely still that honey taste, but without all of the honey sweetness, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Definitely. I made like a killer honey ale. It was probably one of the best beers I ever brewed. And it was awesome. But I did a lot of different, instead of adding priming sugar to carbonate it, because I didn't have kegs to carbonate it for me.
Right.
So I just carbonated it in bottles.
Right.
But instead of priming sugar.
That's always a roulette spin too when you're still doing that shit.
Yeah.
Oops, I got 5 grams too much sugar in it, and now my bottles are exploding.
Yeah. You know, I kind of have it down to science, so I'm pretty good about that. But yeah, I've definitely seen that happen before. And instead of priming sugar, I used honey.
Mm-hmm.
And I even poured in honey into my wort when it was brewing, which was cool too. And it turned out so good. It was like a darker, instead of like I can't even think of the grains now. It's quite a while ago, but I used darker grains than what the original recipe calls for. But yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, honey is, man. There's a reason why for however many thousands of years, honey was just as valuable, if not more so, in a lot of cases than frickin' gold.
Well, I mean, what are the rules? Like divisibility, okay, check. It like never goes bad, right? So check. It's useful for something, so check.
Mm-hmm.
What else am I missing here, Brandon, that makes something money?
The supply.
Yeah, it's limited and it takes effort and work.
I guess unit of account. I mean, you can just
a gallon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go by pounds, I think, right? They go by pounds with honey.
Yeah,
typically.
I think you're right. That is how they do it.
But I mean, whatever unit you choose to measure it in.
Yeah. I mean, you can do whatever ounces or
weight or volume or whatever.
I got this gram, man. I got this gram of honey, bro. I got this gram.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it could be. A gram wouldn't be super, a gram wouldn't be super valuable, but it would still be worth something.
Yeah.
I mean, for making change,
Mm-hmm. It's no crazier than a penny.
Yeah.
No kidding. Actually, I think it's more valuable than the US dollar, but
well, absolutely, but especially fucking honey.
Have you guys heard about the big like honey scandal, like the foreign honey, like they're cutting it with like rice sugar or something? And I was watching something about it. And they, of course, they were asking for regulation, all the honey producers. And it's like, just buy local.
Yeah, because of course. But yeah, that is, they use like syrups or something like that to cut it. Well, it's just like, so still food related. I know at one point, I don't know if this is still going on because I haven't been in restaurants in years now. But at one point there was a concern about bootleg olive oil coming out of Italy, Sicily specifically, because the Sicilian mobsters were fucking cutting the olive oil with bullshit like canola oil or something like that, and then just adding some color and some flavoring to it, and then selling it as extra virgin or virgin olive oil.
Yeah, like, those rubes will buy
this was a real fucking thing years ago. I remember it. Because I remember some people talking to me about that. I'm like, oh my God, you got to be fucking kidding me. You crazy goddamn Sicilians.
Oh, man. Yeah. As a Sicilian, I don't want to. I'm like, I'm from there or anything, but like,
yeah,
I can't really talk shit. Because I'm like, yeah, that's something that would happen.
Well, and here's a funny thing too. Like that is throughout history too. Like that is a normal thing in food related products. Like there are things that you imitate, you bootleg. It's because something or another gets a certain kind of notoriety or whatever for quality. Mm-hmm. So you try and pass yours off as them. Vanilla, modern day. Here's another great example of just absurdly different, like dollar value pricings. So there's the two primary vanilla producing regions of the world are Tahiti and Madagascar. Madagascar vanilla is fucking insanely expensive. Like vanilla beans from Madagascar. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the last time I looked at it was years ago. I was looking at them for things and it was like $500 for a pound.
Ooh.
Wow.
I don't know how much a pound's supposed to cost, but that seems expensive.
It was, because then the Tahitian vanilla was like a quarter of that. No, I mean, it's vanilla is another one of those crops too. Like it's one of those funny things to me that it gets the reputation, if something's vanilla, it's ordinary and basic. Mm-hmm. But vanilla is actually, first off, complicated to grow. And second, incredibly complex in flavoring.
It's like the best smell. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, and it grows from orchids that only really grow well in certain areas of the world, and they don't produce a whole shitload. Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway.
It's an orchid, wow. What dish were you looking for? Or you looking to cook with this really fancy vanilla?
Oh, this was back when I was an executive chef at a restaurant. So this was for various just dessert uses.
Okay, right on. I've got a friend who's a professional chef, and yeah, like some of the stuff, like he like sends me like texts of he's so excited about like some, truffle oil or something that I've never heard of or seems mundane to me, but he's like so excited about it,
Yeah. Yep.
So you actually did some professional, like as far as like you were employed by somebody else,
yes.
Some professional cooking in your past then?
Oh yeah, 20 years of it.
Oh wow. Did you ever go to school or anything for it, or is it just something you picked up on the job?
Yes, both of those. I went to culinary school in the Twin Cities. There was the Cordon Bleu program that was there at one point. I don't think it's there anymore, but it was for like 20 years or something like that. This was also back in the height of the celebrity chef craze. Yeah, so this was the early 2000s that I went, and this was back in the days of Emeril and Bobby Flay being huge and Mario Batali and all those guys. So this was way back in the day of all that insanity. So there were culinary schools on practically every fucking corner. But this one was associated with the Le Cordon Bleu in Paris. Like this was that organization. It was just a branch of it here in the United States. So Yeah, it was
Do you think
great.
that you got value from going to school, or do you think that do you think it was time and money well spent doing that for
Man,
cooking? Or
that's a tough one. I have to honestly say. On the one hand, yes, because I do think that helped open some doors for me as my career went along.
mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, man, that was so much fucking money. Like, I'm still paying on it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. So I guess I felt like culinary school might be a little less than like regular college.
Oh, no. No, it was very expensive. I graduated in 2004. I am still paying on it. I believe the estimated payoff is going to be 2030.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was insane. It was very expensive. And so that's why I kind of yes and no. I have some amazing memories from there. I worked with some fantastic chefs there. I mean, some of them were kind of, middle of the roadish, but some of them were very, very talented. And like I said, it definitely opened some doors for me later on in my career. But especially at this point here, I'm looking back on it and going, man, could I have gotten here without that? And like, there's a little bit of me going, I think I maybe could have. And then I wouldn't have had all this fucking debt. But
having that piece of paper, just like a regular degree, though, sometimes is what it takes,
Well, and like I said, it's not like it's a fucking gender studies degree or some shit like that. Like this,
right?
Yeah, you actually pick up stuff from.
Yeah, this was basically it was a top tier trade school. It was a very well repudiated trade school, is what it boils down to, and that can sometimes be worth it. I think.
Wait, I mean.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, I think the real, well, maybe not the real, but one of the problems I had throughout my career when I was working for other people is just my general attitude, I guess, because I've always been kind of an independent individual. So, but I didn't really realize it when I was younger that working for other people wasn't such a great move for me. I was like, oh, sure, I can work for other people. As I've grown older, I've gone, oh, no, I cannot work for other people. That was a terrible mistake. No. That was a terrible mistake working for other people. I am far too, I want this my way to work for other people.
I totally get it. I'm a little bit of a control freak about business as well, man.
Yeah,
I have a feeling it's probably a common strain amongst freedom lovers and anarchists.
Yeah,
and,
well, especially of the
individualists, but
especially of the individualist strain like we are. Yeah, the more collectivist strain of anarchists, then maybe not, but the more individualist strains of them. Oh yeah.
So I've been trying to think of a way to phrase this that doesn't sound insulting, so bear with me to the end of the sentence. Obviously, you are extremely talented at what you do, and you're very passionate about it. But one of the things that I kind of like about like cooking and this idea of doing like some sort of personal chef business, or like you're doing with cottage foods and whatnot, is that it doesn't there's not a lot of infrastructure involved or like necessarily startup costs, just having a kitchen. Or one of the things I love about personal chefing is you're using somebody else's kitchen, but there's not, like, cooking is one of those things some people are just like good at in a lot of instances, and again, not to belittle the hard work that it takes to, the talent that, you have, but you don't really need much it's one of those things that, talent aside, anybody can do. So it's one of the reasons I kind of really like this idea of doing like a personal chef business. What kind of tips or anything might you have for somebody who might want to get into this? And then also, I guess maybe even somebody who doesn't want to get into like as a business, but maybe just wants to start, like we were saying, being more self-sufficient, being able to cook for themselves. Where would somebody might want to start learning how to do that? I know that's two big different questions there, but
yeah, I was going to say that's a very large question. So this might take a couple minutes, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, I mean, one of the very first things, obviously, is, I'm gonna approach this as learning for yourself, okay? Because trying to do
let's
this,
start there.
We'll start with that, and then we can go to, okay, now you want to do this as a business thing, because that's two very closely related skill sets but different, and we'll get into that. So the very first thing is figure out what you like, figure out what you don't like. Okay, that's pretty easy. Most people have a pretty good grasp of that already. Okay, and then where you can start with learning the skills, man, YouTube is full of it. And you can find anything from basic knife skill videos and instruction to advanced technique, like very advanced technique shit that I probably won't even do, and anywhere in between. And then just like the old joke goes, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. You know, it's that you practice it, you practice it, you practice it, you practice it. And so I had a mantra when I was an actual chef, you know, an executive chef, and I had cooks working for me. My mantra in the restaurants was do it right, do it clean, do it fast, and in that order. And then you take that to heart. So that's when after you've figured out some of the things you want to do, some of the things you want to learn, you focus on getting it right. Don't worry about how fast you're doing it. Don't worry about how messy you are doing it at first. Don't worry about any of that. Make sure you get it right. Then start working on making less of a mess while you're doing it. Doing it a little bit faster, all that kind of thing. Because, I mean, obviously you don't want to sit there. Let's take a real simple thing. I'm sure you've done this a few times yourself. Deboning a chicken or any other bird, pheasant, duck, goose, whatever the hell it is. Okay. This is a great way to save money. First off, is instead of buying cut chicken at the grocery store, buy the whole chicken. They're almost always less expensive per pound. And, you know, with some practice, you can break those apart into the pieces that you want, and away you go. Also, you can usually find chicken breasts that don't weigh like a pound a piece doing it that way. Those things are fucking mutants, and I don't like them. But
yeah, they get a weird texture once they get that big too. Yeah,
it's real. I'm not a fan. But you know, like at this, one of the things my mother likes to say to me sometimes, she's like, "I'm just not as good at doing these as you are." I'm like, "Mom, I've done this professionally. I have literally broken apart thousands of birds. Of course, I'm better than you are." So, you know, and that's just what it is. You get good at it. You practice. You find out the knives that you need and the knives that you like. I know, for example, working in a kitchen, I know what knives I like. I like a 10-inch chef's knife, French style. I'm not a big fan of the Santoku blades. A paring knife, usually about 3-inch blade, 3.5, something like that. And then a bread knife, a like 6 to 8 inch fillet knife, and a 6 to 8 inch boning knife. And those are the only knives I pretty much ever use. Get good with those. Now you can do anything with those knives. Again, something that people laugh at me occasionally about is I almost always just use my chef's knife for practically everything. So one of the things I'll do is I'm getting ready to cut some tomatoes or something like that. I'll have my chef's knife out. I'll grab it by the tip of the blade, hold it almost like a pencil, cut out the core of the tomato, put the tomato down, and then go about slicing or dicing it however I'm doing it. And people laugh at me sometimes because I do that. I'm holding this freaking chef's knife like a pencil practically. But those are techniques you learn how to do, and you practice them. Practice them carefully when you're using things like knives, because you obviously don't want to slice the crap out of your hand. But you practice. Yeah. So I mean, as far as on a personal level, that's pretty much all you need to do. Now, if it's something you want to do as a profession, that's where things start getting a lot more complicated, because you're no longer just making things that you like, which is really easy to do. You need to make things that other people are going to like. And they may have different tastes than you. In fact, they probably are going to have different tastes than you. So that's when you need to start diversifying your knowledge, figuring out flavors that go well together. And that's going to involve some weird experimentation sometimes. One of my favorite stories
Just
on a
throw cheese
professional
on
level. I'm sorry?
Just throw cheese on it is my motto.
Well, that works more often than you might think.
It is a good addition to most things.
Orange juice, just throw cheese in the orange juice.
The orange juice might be a little, that's a 50-50 maybe, but cheese.
Just throw ice cream, yeah, just throw cheese on that thing. It'll work out just fine.
Well, I mean, so one of my favorite stories to tell people when I'm talking about experimenting with flavors. Okay, so one point years ago, I worked at a sports bar here in town. Okay, and one of the things the owner wanted to do, sports bar, and it was a wings place. Okay, it wasn't Buffalo Wild Wings. It's another national chain competitor called Buffalo Wings and Rings, but they franchise their stuff out too. So the owner, so they have some freedom to kind of do some things of their own. The owner wanted to bring in hot dogs because they weren't on the menu, and he thought it went well with the theme. I agreed. One of the things he wanted to do was have a couple of them designed to be deep fried. So in other words, wrapped up into a tortilla, dropped into the fryer, and then served that way. Again, still a great idea. So one of the things I wanted to do just to kind of fuck with them a little bit, because I knew it was going to be great, but I knew they were going to freak out at the idea. So I took one of these hot dogs, and it was like 100% beef, like kosher beef Frank, real good quality. Threw it into a tortilla with some blue cheese crumbles, wrapped it up and deep fried it. Okay, and that was it. It was just the Frank and the blue cheese crumbles. When it got done frying, I took it out and I rolled it in cinnamon sugar. And I was like, here you go, guys, you need to try this. And everybody was just like, this sounds disgusting. What the fuck are you doing? I'm like, just shut up and try it. Every single one of them was like, this is really good. What in the hell are you doing? I was like, see, I told you, you guys need to trust me. Also, we should not try and sell this because I know all of the customers are going to react the exact same way you guys did and nobody's going to buy one. But I just wanted to prove a point. Yeah. So it's just like, I just wanted to prove a point to you. That's it. And that's one of those things. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like I'm really bad at that. Like getting some like the weird combos and stuff. Like I feel like I need to take like a wine tasting course for somebody to tell me what I'm supposed to be picking out of things. Like I know what I like or whatever, but
right.
Well, here's the thing. Weird stuff up like that.
With some of that stuff is like telling you what you're supposed to be tasting. You may or may not taste it ever. Like a palate is something that, and that's something else too that I would recommend just kind of in a general sense to a lot of people is like a palate, food palate, something that has to be developed. Like you need to try a bunch of wild and crazy things to see how they're going to taste. Some of them are going to be really good. Some of them are not. And you need to not be afraid of that. And especially if you want to do it in some kind of business sense, like you need to try these things yourself. And you also need, I think, to develop your palate and expand your tastes. Because, I mean, if you're a person that's like, I like hamburgers, and I like chicken strips, and I like French fries, and that's about it, I'm here to tell you, you're probably not going to have a lot of success as a personal chef because you're not going to know what the hell to do with any of the other things that people like to eat. Now, if you're somebody like me, who every time, on Twitter or something like that, one of those stupid, 1 point for everything that you haven't eaten on this list goes around and I'm like 1, 0. Ooh, this one, I've got 2. There's 2 things on this list I haven't tried. Stuff like that. Like that's kind of where you need to be. You need to know what these things taste like, because people are going to like some of this weird shit that maybe you do or don't. Doesn't necessarily mean you need to like it, but you need to know what it tastes like. Because once you learn in your head, it's like, okay, so it's got a certain kind of sharpness, and there's this bitterness here, and there's a little bit of a natural kind of peppery flavor. Like, okay, cool. I know what this tastes like, so I can know that it's going to be good with this, because this is going to complement it, or this is going to contrast it in a very pleasant way, or things like that. You know, it's a process. I will tell you that. Now, again, like, I've been a professional cook in some form or another since I was, 18? I'm 39 now. I've been doing this a long damn time.
You still enjoy it though, and that's always something in itself. It's so easy to get burnt out on getting into something because you love it, and then ending up hating it is so common.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely is. And for anybody that loves cooking and food, I encourage you to look at things more than just restaurants and bars if you want to do something career-oriented with it. Because there's a lot of things out there. And I'm here to tell you, as somebody who worked in restaurants and bars for most of that 21 years, it takes a special kind of insane person to work in them, because it is a lot of hours. Weekends are your busiest time. So are holidays. So good luck getting either of those things off pretty much ever again. You're going to work until ungodly hours of the night, probably regularly. So say goodbye to your social life. And it is fast-paced. It is very fast-paced. It is very high stress. Last I looked, professional chefs, I think, were like number 3 on the list of like most stressful careers in the United States, and like number 2 or something similar to that for substance abuse. I mean, it is a brutal environment.
When you said number 3, I was totally going to go.
Still more dangerous than probably still more dangerous than being a police officer too.
Probably is. Dude, probably not funny since it ended up being true, but I was going to go, oh yeah, number 2 for cocaine usage. And then you said number 2 for substance abuse. So now I feel like a little bit of a dick, but it's kind of true.
No, you shouldn't, because it's a legitimate thing. So another just fun story from my youth. When I was finishing up my culinary school, one of the things we did was an internship type of deal with a restaurant someplace. So I chose to do with one at a restaurant there in Minneapolis. And it was, I don't know, like a Friday or Saturday night. I was asking the garde-manger guy who I was working next to, I was like, so, I don't even remember his name now, but I was like, so what are you going to be doing tonight? Like, well, Saturday, so I think I'm going to go get some alcohol, and I'm going to go get some Coke, and I'm going to go get some women, and I'm going to have a good time. I was like, all right then. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, that is a big thing, especially in the higher end restaurant industry. I have friends who struggle with that. For sure, being chefs, and had problems continuing to do the work, because you're just around it. It's very fast paced work. I mean, I used to work in restaurants when I was younger, and like nothing fancy, but like, I mean, in a sense, I enjoyed it, but I don't want to go work in a restaurant. So I really like where you were going with that. Like, find another way to do food that isn't just a restaurant. I mean, especially now, I mean, opening a restaurant, in the days of COVID is probably about the worst thing you could even think of doing.
Well, and so, I mean, opening a business in general, as a lot of people know, it's a very risky proposition. Like, businesses have a very high failure rate in the first year. Restaurants are above and beyond that. Last I remember seeing, restaurants have like a 33% success rate. in the first year. And then of those that succeed in their first year, that remain open after 1 year, something like only 20% of those are still open after 5. Like, they have a very, very high failure rate because you have a very volatile product that is kind of expensive in some cases.
Oh, yeah.
And usually like razor thin profit margins. A really good restaurant profit margin, like actual profit, is 3%. That's really good. Typically it's right around 1. So they are not super profitable. They're very high stress. And yeah, they're a bitch. They're a bitch and a half, man. Bars
Everybody
are,
I know who owned one has heart attacks.
Yeah. It's super stressful.
Yeah.
It's super stressful. Like,
so there's just no way. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I like to think I'm a pretty laid back person. And in general, I think that's an accurate opinion of myself. In restaurants, especially when I was the executive chef, man, I was constantly on edge because there's a fucking ton of pressure.
So what might you suggest people look into then, let's say aside from like personal chefing, if they wanted to get into something food related, but wanted to avoid the
restaurant world,
the hustle and bustle of the restaurant industry. Yeah.
That is a very understandable thing. Well, I mean, that's going to depend a little bit on where your talents lie. So, for example, are you a bit better as a cook or as a baker? Okay, and if you're a baker, are you better as a like bread and that kind of thing baker, or are you really good with the cakes and the decorating and all that kind of thing? Because I mean, if you're a good cake decorator, especially, that is pretty much constantly in demand because it is a very difficult skill to get real good at. And the benefit to something like that is, especially if you're trying to do it kind of without a lot of overhead type of thing, or kind of on the side to where the government might not notice as much. Most of the time, I think in most states in the US anyway, cakes and cake decorating and all that kind of stuff is going to fall under cottage food laws to where you can do it without any real issue. And so for people who are unaware of what cottage food laws or cottage industry laws generally in specific, but the cottage food is a different subcategory of that. It's just sort of like what the name might imply. It's done out of your cottage. It's done out of your home. There's usually minimal to no regulations practically. Well, no, I wouldn't say no, but there's usually very minimal regulations on what you can and can't do. There's almost zero oversight, basically. I know for me, for example, up in North Dakota, the only time a health inspector will ever set foot in my home to inspect it under cottage food laws is if there is a credible claim of illness from one of my products. And that's the only time they will ever set foot in to take a look at anything. So, I have basically no oversight from the local health department.
Yeah, and well, foodborne illness is extremely hard to prove in the first place.
Well, and that's why they say a credible claim, not proven claim.
Yeah, like my stomach hurt right after I ate your food, and it's like, well, most foodborne illness takes like 12 to 15 hours.
Exactly. Well, I just ate your bread, and now I'm sick to my stomach. Okay, cool. That's not my bread then.
Yeah, that was what you ate like 12 hours ago.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's when, and I do have to say, once again, the health departments up here are generally not too terrible, much like a lot of the other government. I mean, they still suck, but it's...
So you wouldn't want to do it in California, in other words.
Yeah, well, and I obviously don't know what the laws are like down there because I don't.
Probably horrible.
I would imagine. I remember seeing something a couple of years ago where they actually had passed some laws to ease up the restrictions down there, which I thought was really wonderful. Because, I mean, hell, anything that gives people more options is a wonderful thing. But yeah, so I mean, cottage food laws, though, we got a little off topic there. And cottage food laws are a great place to start looking if you've got an interest in that. Okay, what can I make? What can I sell? That kind of thing. And then look and see where your skills are. And a lot of it's going to be kind of like catering adjacent / personal chef adjacent type of things. You know, like a friend of a friend knows that you're a good cook, and they ask you to come cook for a little retirement party or a small wedding reception they're having. You know, they're not having anything big. They don't need anything fancy. They just want a little food for them and 15 of their friends. Can you do something for them? Yeah, sure. You know, whatever. You know, a lot of it's going to be things like that if you want to get into food. But I mean, then you also have the miracle that is the 21st century and the internet. So there's all sorts of other things you can, well, maybe not all sorts of other things, but there are other things you can do too. You can start a YouTube cooking channel. I mean, it's not going to make you rich probably because there's a bunch of them out there, but you can still do it. Nothing's going to stop you. Show people how to do it.
What about like a food truck? I mean, I don't know the regulations for that either, but I mean, if they never know where you're at, I mean, how are they gonna?
I mean, you could do a guerrilla food truck. I don't know that I would recommend something like that in general, but the benefit there is in a lot of places, though they're starting, I think, to crack down on this some more because, you know, the government's not getting their cut, basically. But in a lot of places, food truck regulations tend to be a bit more light than actual restaurants. And the overhead, I do have to say, the overhead is considerably less. Obviously, I can't speak to other places than here for a lot of this because I haven't looked and I've had no reason to look, basically. But I know up here, you can usually buy a halfway decent food truck setup for, you know, like $30,000 or so. So that's the truck. That's going to be some of the cooking equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So that's not, I mean, it's not nothing, obviously, but it's certainly no $100,000+ for setting up a restaurant. And then
it's not really unattainable.
Yeah, it's very obtainable, even if you don't have a lot of money to start with. So, and then, like I said, a lot of the time the regulations are a little bit lighter handed. So you can not have to worry quite about it.
You're not tethered to like a spot, like, you know, like real estate and businesses and restaurants is like location, right? But like with a food truck, like, you know, you can roll out location.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's wherever it needs to be.
Your location is very fluid at that point.
Yeah.
You know, like around here, I know a real easy win, and this is in most places, you know, is you go into a bar, especially if you're a regular customer, man, at one of the bars, and you've got a food truck, you go in and talk to the owner or talk to a manager, be like, hey, can I set up in that corner in your parking lot with my food truck? Most of the time, those
I hit it up at like 11 p.m.
Yeah, well, anytime, especially if it's a busy one. Like a lot of those bar owners, man, they'll be like, yes, because what will happen then is my customers will get hungry, and instead of leaving, they'll just go outside for 10 minutes. They'll get a sandwich or a taco or a burrito or whatever the fuck it is that you're selling, and then they'll come back in and they'll continue to drink. So yes, please, go ahead and set up over there because this will be huge for my customers, and I will continue to make money off of them this way. So I mean,
if they're eating, they're drinking more too. So you're selling more beers at that point.
And obviously this is going to be dependent on the bar that you're asking. If you're going to a sports bar or something like that, a wing place, they've got their own food. So they'll be like, no, get the fuck out of here. We don't want you taking our customers.
Yeah.
But, just like a regular bar, like I know up here, there's plenty of times I've been with people going out and having a few drinks or something like that. And they're like, somebody's like, man, I'm getting kind of hungry. Let's go to whatever diner or restaurant, get something to eat.
That's me. I'm that guy.
Yeah. Which I've been that guy before too, because there's times where it's like, man, I haven't eaten. I'm starving.
You're trying to drink and you're like, this night's going to end poorly if I don't get food in me.
Yeah. Let's go. And if you've got the option right outside the door practically that serves decent food, it's like, fuck, let's just go outside real quick. You want to have a cigarette anyway, so let's go outside. You have your cigarette. I'm going to get a burrito, and then we'll come back in and keep drinking.
Well, because probably like most like bars that aren't like, restaurants too, that try to do some small, easy food option, like, like those easy pizzas or something, like they're not making any money off of that food, but they're probably doing it to keep people drinking. It's probably the whole
And that
point.
is exactly why. I mean, in some cases they're doing it. Like I know up here, I think they've changed this recently, which is good because it was a reduction in stupid laws. But I know up in my town, at one point, bars could not even be open on a Sunday unless they also served food. And it had to meet certain qualifications to be food. And so that's why a lot of those bars had those pizzas and shit, because it's like, this is one of those things, we've got these, we've got a couple other things, and bam, we've got the necessary qualifications, we can be open on Sunday. Who cares if anybody orders them? And if they do, great. But if they don't, whatever, we can be open for the people that want to come in and drink. So
it's so funny when they make laws that are just like that easy to just get around. Like it's like, what's the point, dude?
Yeah, there isn't one. It's and some of that stuff, especially up here, like it's holdovers from Prohibition and shit like that, which that's a whole nother shit show. But that's where some of that came from. And especially up here, like being as close to the border as we are, like bootlegging was a very big thing up here back during Prohibition.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Oh, yeah, it was. There was, at one point in my town specifically, there was an awful lot of federal agents because of bootlegging.
Nice. I love like the history, like all that, like all like Prohibition and stuff, and like mafia stuff. Like I just love like the history, all that. It's so cool to me. So anything you have the smuggling or bootlegging, I love it. I read tons of books about that kind of stuff. There's actually a lot of my girls from Milwaukee, and they had a lot of really weird like alcohol laws too. Like bars could be open till like 3 a.m., but you couldn't buy alcohol at a store past 9, which is like, oh, you can't go home and drink, but you can be out and about. And just a bunch of strange alcohol laws like that too.
Minnesota was like that at one point too, because like I said, I went to culinary school there, and it was really weird to me because coming over from North Dakota, just the next state over, like at the time, our liquor laws were bars closed at 1 a.m. and so did the liquor stores. Okay, fair enough, fine. That's how it worked. I get over there and it's like, okay, bars close at 2, awesome. Liquor stores close at 9. What?
It seems so backwards.
Yeah, you'd think if anything, they'd do it the other way around. But no, supposedly the rationale was the liquor stores closed early because that way, when you're having a house party or whatever, the people would do that last beer run before the liquor stores close early in the night before they're super hammered to cut down on drinking and driving. Which
I apply to a handful of situations.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I can kind of see that rationale, but that's real fucking dumb.
Yeah, it's pretty silly. I thought I heard like in New Orleans or something, like you could drink and drive as long as you had a straw, because then you weren't like taking your eyes off the road to put the glass in front of your face. But I don't know if that was bullshit or not.
I feel like that's probably bullshit, but that would be amazing if it was true.
I know,
Like,
I love it. I'm like, well, shit, if that's all it takes.
You can be as fucked up as you want, but you have to drink through a straw.
Yeah.
Done and done.
Oh shit.
I'll drink my shit through a crazy straw if you need me to at that point. Whatever.
That keeps you from getting too drunk. It takes it that much longer to get to your face.
Yeah, something. Who fucking that?
I guess. Yeah.
That would be real funny if that was true. I strongly suspect it is not, though.
Well, like when I was there, and this was a long time ago, they had like drive-through daiquiri places. So they could Amazing. Serve you. It was like a daiquiri in a cup with a straw through a drive-through window, and there was some legal loophole where that was legal there. And it was just strange. Maybe that had something to do with tied into it, but yeah, man, I do remember they had like drive-in daiquiri places.
That is real weird.
Yeah, it's a weird town, but
yeah,
I'm not complaining. So,
sounds like
you got anything else, Brandon?
No, I'm just a big listener myself. I just like to listen. But yeah, it's been a fun episode. I've really enjoyed, especially all the getting around the bullshit red tape and stuff. I guess I do have one question. What have you noticed with COVID? I mean, have they added more I guess they've added more regulations, like you've got to wear a mask, and depending on the state, right? But
yeah,
what have you seen on that front?
As far as things I think that are going to stick around, generally speaking, that's probably still going to depend on state and locality, but I wouldn't say a whole hell of a lot. I mean, most of it is the stupid shit that people make fun of all the time online. Like, you have to wear a mask when you walk into a restaurant, but then as soon as you sit down at the table, you can take it off because who fucking knows why, but things like that. There's some dumb things like that, but that's really about it, and like, I know locally they have capacity restrictions that fluctuate that have been fluctuating a little bit. They've been tightening back down here recently because, we've gone from number of deaths being the primary concern to the number of people actually testing positive for this thing. And of course, with much more widespread testing, you're going to find more positive results. So the number of cases has been climbing drastically recently, so we need to tighten down on capacity restrictions and so forth again, and stupid crap like that. But that's really about it that I've seen in the restaurant, bar, hospitality industry, is basically masks and capacity restrictions. But that's pretty much universal to everything.
Yeah. It feels like we're probably gonna have to wear masks forever, right? But
I'm really
some people.
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing too, and I know this has been a very contentious issue with a lot of people in our circles, the masks versus the no masks and all this other shit. And of course, on the one hand, I absolutely loathe the mandate because fuck you, is basically what it boils down to.
Yeah, you don't want to get your customers sick because they won't come back. I mean,
absolutely.
It's pretty...
Absolutely. And much like that one client of mine, with the older mother-in-law who's not in the best of health, and they were like, yeah, no, we're just kind of cutting off contact with pretty much everybody right now because we don't want to risk her getting sick. It's like, if you're doing it of your own volition, I could not care less. Could not care less. My only issue with the masks are the mandates. But, and this is something that has been mentioned by several people before, and I feel it bears repeating because there's an awful lot of people that are still they've got the bit in their teeth of the mandate and they can't see anything else. With masks gaining widespread acceptance, you gain the ability to start obfuscating who you are in a public place without drawing attention. Because if it's normal for people to be walking around in face masks and shit on their heads and all this other crap, you can obscure your identity pretty easily.
Yeah, that is one thing that I do like about it. There have been times where I'm like, man, I don't even want to be seen right now. So those are the times that I will put on a mask and
and people don't even look twice anymore.
Yeah,
they're just like, okay, whatever.
You don't have to drive the next town to pick up your burner phones anymore. It's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's just it. It's like, and even the people who are like, well, you carry around a tracking device in your pocket all the time. Yeah, I can put down a tracking device. My face is kind of attached to me pretty much always. So if it becomes acceptable in the public to constantly be walking around with a mask on, awesome. You can obscure who you are whenever the hell you want. Well, and then, of course, you get the screams of, well, they'll just double down on gait analysis. Change how you walk. It's pretty easy. Just step differently.
Put a pebble in your right shoe.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's like they're in a way, it's being made easier for you to be a fucking ghost in public. And that is a good thing, and it is something I think people do need to be a little more conscientious of. Yes, the mandates are still horrible. I'm not going to disagree with that because it's still people telling you what you can and cannot wear. And go get fucked. However, to the normies who don't think beyond anything, that's just meaning this is becoming commonplace and socially acceptable. Cool. That's a good thing.
I guess it's nice to have the option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, I mean, prior to all this insanity, okay, unless you were Asian, obviously apparently Asian, like Eastern Asian specifically, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, etc. If you were wearing a mask someplace in public during flu season or any other time, you got a lot of real weird looks. Now, people don't even look twice.
Yeah, now you get the weird looks when you're not wearing the mask.
Depending on where you are.
Angry glances. Yeah.
Up here, people are just uncaring pretty much either way. You're wearing a mask? Okay, cool. You're not wearing a mask? Okay, cool. But up here, even still, before all this, if you were wearing a mask, especially one of the homemade ones, like if you were wearing a medical mask, like an actual medical mask for some reason, people didn't generally look at that too weird. But one of the homemade masks, you would draw eyes up here prior to all this shit. Now, nobody looks twice.
Yeah, before they just think you're doing a Handmaid's Tale cosplay or something, you know?
Yeah.
Oh
my God. Can I take a few moments of your podcast to rant about something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely nothing to do with anything we've talked about, but Dag just saying that, I got a little triggered. Can we fucking people read some different goddamn books? For fuck's sake, man. It is all either Handmaid's Tale, not so much Harry Potter anymore because J.K. Rowling is apparently a transphobe or some stupid horse shit, even though she isn't, but whatever. But prior to all that, it was either Harry fucking Potter or Handmaid's Tale, and now they're also getting into all the Marvel shit. And it's just like, you people need to consume some other fucking media because not everything is comparable to this shit. Read a different book, you fucking idiots.
Right.
I'd give people credit if they were reading the Handmaid's Tale book. I assume people just watch the show.
I mean, some of both, but regardless, consume some different media. Make some comparisons to almost literally anything else. I don't even care at this point. Just something different. It can be a bad comparison. Well, this is like that scene in The Wheel of Time. Okay, it isn't, but thank you for having read something else.
I read 1984 and Animal Farm recently because I never read them before, and like, yeah, everybody's read them, but I was like, it's time. This year is definitely the time.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I don't do much fiction, but since you're ranting about people's poor choice in fiction, why don't you throw out some of your recommendations?
For what, just in general?
Yeah, I mean, fiction in particular, I'd love to hear. But if you got any books that you think everybody should read, go for it.
So, I mean, it's just because I enjoy the series a whole shitload. Like, there's no cultural significance really or anything like that. But the author Jim Butcher has written some fantastic books. One of them is called The Dresden Files. It is an urban fantasy series where the main character is a wizard and also a private eye. Fantastic. It is currently like 16 books long, so it's a lengthy series, but it's very good. He also wrote a series called the Codex Alera. That is finished up. It was only 6 books long, so I do recommend it. And it is Pokemon meets Lost Roman Legion. So this is also fantasy, obviously, in case you couldn't tell. So those are fantastic. Patrick Rothfuss as well has written there are 2 books in the series. There are supposed to be 3. I don't know if he'll ever get the 3rd book done because holy shit, that guy does not know how to keep deadlines. It is called The Kingkiller Chronicle. The first 2 books are The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear. It is probably some of the best fantasy I have ever read. It is phenomenal. And if he does not finish the 3rd book in this series, it will be incredibly frustrating to not get the final bit of the story that he set up in the first 2 books. But in spite of that, I still recommend them. They're very, very good.
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the show called Carnival. That, like the first 2 seasons were like great. They stopped making it. I was like, no.
Yeah, he's just real bad about keeping his deadlines, and he's also a perfectionist, which makes it worse. And he himself, I am not a fan of Patrick Rothfuss, the man. Some people might know his name. He was on, I don't know, one of the D&D podcasts or something like that with some moderately famous people he's on periodically. I think it might be the Penny Arcade one. I don't remember. But he's on one of those, and, you know, he's hilarious in a lot of ways, but he is generally kind of a cunt unless you're one of his friends. Like, to the point where he angrily lashes out at fans if they have the fucking gall to just, like, politely ask, no less, if there are any updates on the 3rd book in the Kingkiller Chronicle. You know, the thing that made him actually famous.
Mm-hmm.
That, asking if there are any updates. By the way, he finished the 2nd book like 10 years ago. So he's had like 10 years to write this book. It is a 3-book series. He has said it from the day one. It is 3 books long. So, yeah.
Some of us want to get to it before we die, right?
Yeah. But I want to get to it before he dies.
Yeah.
At this fucking rate.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, finish it out, man.
At this fucking rate, he may not fucking finish it before he croaks. I mean, he's not a particularly old man. He's only like 50 or something like that. You know, he's not a spring chicken, but he's not old either. But at this rate, fuck's sake, man, he may not get it written. It is 3 books long. Finish that shit up, man.
Oh, hell yeah. All right, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, dude. This is great. Why don't you let people know where they can find you? We're currently doing a bunch of baked goods and stuff. Are any of them for sale? Are you shipping any products? Go ahead and plug what you got, dude.
So I am not shipping the baked goods yet, other than to some people who requested them, because I ran a GoFundMe here lately to raise money to buy a bigger mixer, because the little 4.5 quart KitchenAid I've been using just ain't cutting it anymore. So I also
Scale
promised.
up.
Yeah, I promised some people baked goods if they wanted it in return for donations, and some people have said, yes, please, I would like that. So other than those, I'm not shipping them yet. I'm probably going to once I figure out how to do it, because the biggest problem I'm running into, is getting them there while they're not molded or something like that. Because I mean, it's homemade baked goods, man. I'm not using a ton of preservatives or shit like that in them. Like my sourdough bread consists of flour, water, salt, and butter, and that is it. It is 4 ingredients. So, so I just need to figure out how I want to do this to where the quality isn't garbage and they make it to whoever wants them. I am, however, they are not currently up there. The spice mixes that I mentioned earlier, I will have those. And I also will have some homemade jams and the like for sale up on Etsy. Which Etsy, backtracking in our conversation a little bit, that is another good way for people interested in trying to make some money off of some of these things to try and sell their product. Etsy is a pretty solid platform. They take a very minimal finder's fee, basically, for when you sell things. And yeah, pretty much as long as
I have a question.
Yeah.
So on that note, so you have, or at least you used to have a website where you sold like some products, t-shirts and stuff?
Yes, I still have that website now.
You do? Okay, yeah. So here's my question, and this is totally personal here, but like, because I'm debating whether I should sell stuff on Etsy or do like a Shopify on a website, but the Shopify is like $30 a month just to have, you know? So would you recommend that until you get big enough that Etsy is the way to go? Like, why are you doing Etsy versus selling this on your website?
Cost, plain and simple. So Etsy charges, there is no monthly fee for it. Okay. You just have your store. They charge 20 cents, like 20 or 30 cents. I don't remember which per item 20. Might have been that. I just don't remember, but it's 20 or 30 cents to list an item, and it's good for 3 or 4 months. I don't remember which. And then it's another 20, 30 cents, whatever the hell it is, to renew the listing. Okay. And then they take, I want to say it's like 5% when it sells of whatever it sells for as basically a payment processing fee, which if you do any kind of credit card payment processing or anything like that, you're going to be paying fees like that anyway.
Yeah. So
it's a pretty comparable payment processing fee, maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit higher than some, but not enough to where I went, well, that's fucking unacceptable. Yeah, it's just a little bit higher. And then there's that really small flat fee to list the item. And that's it. So the cost is minimal until you sell something. And the thing of it is they take whatever the percentage is off the top of the sale. So you don't actually ever even see that money and have to pay it to them. They just don't give it to you. So really the only thing you're paying is the listing fee, which is next to nothing.
Yeah, so once you get that and get your shipping figured out, that's the other tricky thing. But otherwise it's a really great.
And here's the thing, Etsy takes care of a lot of that for you too.
Yeah, they do help out with that a lot. They do make it a little bit easier. That was my big thing, was figuring out the shipping, but they really made it like,
it's
here's the weight, here's the dimensions, here's what it costs. And I think they even have a deal with like UPS or something where they get a little better rate.
Postal service. Yep. Yeah, you can buy your shipping labels directly from Etsy, and you get a little bit of a better deal than you would if you took it down to the post office. It's not substantial, but I mean, money saved is money saved.
Cents counts.
Yeah.
Like I was selling dog treats on there, and like the shipping alone was like $8, and it's like, I sell these things for, $2 a piece at the farmer's market. And here I'm lucky to get $1 a piece for them after shipping, so shipping is a big chunk. So any little bit helps for sure. What's your shop's name?
So the shop is Regis Barn Craftworks. I'll spell it all out for you.
Thank you.
It's REGISBARN Craftworks, just like you think it's spelled. CRAFTWORKS.
Right. Cool.
And so that's that. And that has, it's kind of bare right now because I need to refill it. But so that'll have my spice mixes. It'll have jams. That'll have any other food items that I'm looking to sell. That also will have the things my mother makes. So there's going to be some quilted and sewn things. And then it will also have my woodworking crafts on there. I don't expect necessarily people to buy those very often because they're A, a little bit expensive, and B, the shipping is very expensive because wood is heavy.
Yeah.
But, nonetheless, they'll be there if somebody's interested.
Hey, put them up.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as you mentioned a few moments ago, I do still have a website that I really, really, really need to get better about putting things on. I am so fucking bad with this, but there it is anyway. And that is thestatelesscook.com, spelled just like you would expect it to be. And I write blog posts there occasionally. There should be links to my YouTube channel, where I also am real terrible about putting videos up here lately. And that's where I am doing some cooking videos and the like. You can find that at YouTube and Library, or Libre, or however the hell that's supposed to be pronounced. The LRBRY one, the one where the deterrence dispensed guys are doing all their stuff.
Oh yeah, it's great.
So I have channels on both of those, and that is also Stateless Cook. You should be able to find them in just a regular search there. And then last, but certainly not least, because this is where I spend far, far too much of my time, that's Twitter, the website, as the Fadcast boys would call it. Twitter.com. And I am at Barbary, BARBARY of OF, all one word.
Yeah, and if you guys want to see an epic mustache configuration and kilt,
yes,
kilt donning,
you'll know it's me when you see the picture of the crazy shirtless guy standing posed with a walking staff with burned Nordic runes in it, with a crazy mustache and a kilt.
Like an early 1900s weightlifter or something.
Yeah.
That mustache, yeah. I love it.
Yeah, straight up like 1900s strongman.
Yeah.
I don't know, look, I'm going.
I think I have to follow this one.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on, Michael. This was great. And
absolutely.
I still had like 20 questions on my thing here, so we could have kept going for hours, but we're not doing one of those McDonald's review episodes here, so we're not gonna do that.
Yeah, that was a long one.
Yeah, it was something for sure.
Man. If you guys ever want to have me back on, I'm more than happy to come back too.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking as we were doing this, we got to do some sort of good, just like way to get around food law, like specific episode, because that's my specialty right there. Like I love that stuff. So yeah. We may have to talk to you about doing something like that in the future.
Sure.
You got a folder or anything?
Labeled all dog treats or something, or
that's my go-to. Yes, I have the pet food license, $40 a year.
Bro. Can you ship me those dog treats, dog?
I mean,
so
another
some of those dog treats, bro.
Another quick and fun story about shipping some of these things and calling it other shit to get it past your master's type of horse crap. Just briefly, my sister did a year of university over in Belgium or France, one of the two. I can't remember which. And so she sent some brandy or cognac specifically, I don't remember which, to my dad at the time. This was years and years ago, of course. But she sent some of it to my father, and she labeled it to customs as perfume to get it through customs, because of course they just do a scan and it's like, okay, there's this little fancy bottle. Well, it's perfume. It's not alcohol. Oh, okay. Off you go. So yeah, there's definitely shenanigans like labeling things differently, because then the people that might be checking these things won't care at that point.
I thought you were going to tell me that it actually turns out perfume has a much bigger issue with like import taxes or something, and it ended up causing more problems.
No. Nope. No, it was something that was, I mean, she basically technically was bootlegging alcohol into the United States from France, because she didn't pay any excise taxes or anything like that. I mean, she bought one little bottle of something for my father, of course. So who the fuck cares? But like, technically, she's a bootlegger.
Yeah, there's probably like duties or something. Hey, man,
Mm-hmm.
I got to start a smuggling career somewhere.
Absolutely.
Nice.
You got a quote or anything for us, Brandon?
Yeah, of course. The 5th of November today, so going that route here. Behind this mask, there's more than just flesh. Beneath this mask, there's an idea, and ideas are bulletproof. That's a V for Vendetta quote. Of course, Nexus out.
Movie.